Hey everybody, and this video brings us out to Christmas. We are here in Christmas, Florida, because I figured where better to celebrate June 25th than in Christmas, because today is exactly halfway until Christmas. In just 6 short months from right now, we will be celebrating Christmas. It will be Christmas Day. Perhaps where you are from, it'll be cold outside. Maybe there will be snow on the ground here in Florida. It'll still be 90-something degrees and humid. I will be sweating right now, even though I will be celebrating Christmas. Either way, though, there will be decor up. There will be Christmas trees up, and Santa Claus will have just visited our house. So I figured, again, where better to celebrate the halfway point until Christmas than here in Christmas, Florida, at a place I've never been before. We're here at Fort Christmas. I've heard of this place. I've known about this place. I've wanted to visit this place. And today we are here to visit Fort Christmas, halfway until Christmas. Not entirely sure if they're actually opened on Christmas Day. Probably not, but I feel like they should be, right? If they are, maybe we'll come back out here on Christmas Day. But either way, wanted to come out to Fort Christmas to see this amazing place. Again, halfway through the calendar year until Christmas. So, all right, let's pop inside. Let's go check out an 1800s fort, and let's have an adventure. Although, before we do actually pop into the fort, I figured maybe we should read the historical marker out here. So, if you guys are not familiar with the Seminole Indian Wars, do some research. Not exactly a great time in American history, and you'll see why. As white settlers moved into Florida in the 1820s and 1830s, there were growing demands that the Seminole Indians be removed to a reservation west of the Mississippi. Efforts to convince the Seminoles to move failed, and in 1835, the conflict known as the Second Seminole War began in earnest. Late in 1837, Major General Thomas S. Jessup, overall commander in Florida, began intensive preparations to carry the fighting to South Florida, where he believed he would find a large force of hostile Indians. These preparations included opening a road on the west side of the St. Johns River and building along the road several posts to serve as depots for operations to the south. On December 25th, 1837, troops under the command of Brigadier General Abraham Eustis, am I saying that right? Eustis, established Fort Christmas on the north side of a creek a short distance from here. General Jessup himself led the column south from Fort Christmas early in January. By late January, Jessup's troops were receiving their supplies by water from the St. Lucie River, and in March, Fort Christmas was abandoned. While this simple wooden fortification was short-lived, it gave its name to the town of Christmas, a short distance south of here. So there you go. In the 1820s and 1830s, white settlers moving to Florida went, we don't want these darn Indians here, the Native Americans here, get them out, put them on a reservation. Like, even though this is their land and we are moving into it, kick them out. And of course, the Seminole Indians, not a huge fan of that idea, not a huge fan of being driven off of their land and pushed into a reservation west of the Mississippi, which, if you guys know your geography, you got Florida. Mississippi's a little bit of a ways away. They did not want to move there. They did not go peacefully, and a war broke out. Never should have broke out. The Native Americans who should have had the rights to this land, who have been living here for a very long time, they never should have been forced to move, but unfortunately they were, and a war broke out, and as such, things like these forts were put up. So not exactly a great point in American history, but I guess you need these sorts of things to remind people to not repeat history. Though, if you're looking at current history, maybe some people need to come out to places like this to remind themselves of the way things should be and maybe things shouldn't be. But regardless, I did want to pop out here. I did want to check this place out, and it's a pretty small little fort, but it is pretty cool looking. There's a plaque down here that says Fort Christmas 1837, reconstructed 1977. Behind this plaque, a time capsule has been encased to be opened in the year of our Lord, 2027. That is awesome. In just 2 years from now, we can come back out here and watch them open a time capsule placed here in 1977. That would be really cool. I'm gonna have to come back out here and check that out. Gotta kind of do some research as to maybe if they have an exact date as to when they're gonna do that. If they do, definitely coming back out here to watch them open the time capsule. That would be pretty awesome. I definitely want to come back out here and see that. This fort is kind of cool looking. I'm digging this. Built, I guess, reconstructed in 1977. This is really, really awesome. Again, not a great moment necessarily to celebrate in the history of the United States of America, but still a pretty cool place to visit. Walking around here, I kind of feel like I'm at Walt Disney World right now. This fort is very reminiscent of the one over on Tom Sawyer Island, which is actually about to close in just a couple of weeks. I have to get back over there to see it one last time. But over on Tom Sawyer Island, there is a fort called Fort Langhorne, named after Samuel Langhorne Clemens, aka Mark Twain, who obviously wrote Tom Sawyer. Pretty awesome fort over there. Really cool. There's all kinds of things you can climb around on. There's like an escape tunnel and there's guns you can shoot. Really, really awesome, cool, fun fort to explore over on the island at Walt Disney World. This has a very similar feel, though I'm assuming probably all the forts kind of built in and around this time all kind of had a similar sort of look and feel to them. So I don't really think they've necessarily based it off of this actual fort. Probably, again, all kinds of forts built around the same time looked just like this, but pretty awesome to be out here. It does really feel like you're at Walt Disney World. It has a very, very similar feel. Looking forward to actually going inside the buildings and kind of seeing if they're set up the same way as well. There's a powder magazine over here. This is where they kept all their guns and their ammunition and everything. Look at that. Probably barrels of gunpowder there, and there's the rifles right there. The powder magazine was used for storing ammunition and was below ground level for safety. Should the powder explode, the energy from the blast would be sent mostly upwards into the air, not outwards, destroying the fort and causing injury to soldiers. So there you go. Pretty awesome. Yeah, no smoking. Probably a good idea. So this here is the Blockhouse. It says the Blockhouses served as lookouts, headquarters of General Thomas S. Jessup, and protection of the troops in the event of an Indian attack. 2 blockhouses were constructed on opposite corners of the stockade. So here's blockhouse, I guess, number 1. There's the stockade, and then there's blockhouse number 2 over there. It says open, so we can actually go inside here. Oh my gosh, look at all of this. I was not expecting all of this to be inside here. Also, it's air conditioned in here. I'm loving that. I was not expecting AC either. I kind of thought this would be similar to Walt Disney World, and it would just kind of be a thing you can sort of explore. But look at all the different stuff that's in here. All kinds of coins, and there's all sorts of pieces of artifacts here, like bottles and bullets and buttons, and there's forks and buckles and all kinds of interesting things here. Look at all the rifles and powder horns and all this stuff over here. This is really cool. Again, was not expecting to see all of this. This was definitely more than I had anticipated. There's some cannonballs right there. This is really cool. There's some Indian pottery. There's some horseshoes, some handmade nails. All right, this is actually really cool. And there's a map of Florida. That is cool. Again, this was definitely not what I thought we'd be seeing inside here. Look at the USS United States. Look at that clipper ship there. Pretty cool. Again, all the different artifacts. I'm going to assume, I don't know, but I would assume all these artifacts are ones that were actually found at Fort Christmas. I could be wrong about that, but that's pretty awesome. Okay, so the sign actually does say Fort Christmas artifacts. These artifacts were found in the vicinity of the original fort, which was about 1 mile north of this location. There's no visible evidence of the fort today. So at least all of this was found in the vicinity of the original fort. Whether or not all of this and all of that and everything else was also found in and around where the fort was, I don't know. But at least these are actual legit artifacts, which is really, really cool. Really cool to think about. This is stuff that the actual army back in 1837 was using. That is pretty cool. Their actual horseshoes and their nails and their buckles and their hatchets and their metal rings and all kinds of interesting stuff. That is really cool. Those are actual legit 1837 artifacts. And what makes this even more awesome is the fact that there's an upstairs to all of this. So yeah, we're gonna go up here and check this out. Look at the taxidermy here. There's a wild turkey. I see those all the time down here. There's a beaver. There's like Native American clothing. Look at this. How cool is this? Pretty awesome. Looks like there's a Native American, like a Seminole Indian village right there. All kinds of other Native American artifacts down here. This is cool. You could actually sit here and watch a whole documentary, I guess, on the fort and the second Seminole Indian War. Pretty neat. Again, I was not expecting all of this. This is really cool. So much history here. I honestly expected to walk in here and just see the inside of the fort. Wasn't expecting all of this. This is actually really neat because it tells you all about the Seminole Indians, which is definitely something pretty cool. So I do like that they're very much represented here. It's not just a like, oh, look at this great, awesome, cool U.S. fort. They really do talk about the Native Americans that were being driven out of their homes, off their land, out of their homes, off their land. I do appreciate the fact that they do talk about them. It's not like they're just kind of like forgotten. Yeah, here in Florida, you never know. So I was a little concerned that maybe there wouldn't be enough talk about them, but there is plenty of talk about the Seminole Indians and their culture and whatnot, which is really, really awesome, and the way it should be. So, all right, we're gonna head out of the first blockhouse and head over towards the second blockhouse, and hopefully it doesn't rain on us. So apparently in 1837, there were 2,000 troops who were here stationed at Fort Christmas, again, on December 25th. Makes you wonder, they couldn't have been. They couldn't have all been inside this tiny little fort, right? That's a heck of a lot of people to be inside this tiny little fort. I'm going to assume they were stationed outside the fort as well, probably maybe in tents or sort of some makeshift shelter outside of the fort. And then in the case of a Native American attack, and in the case of the Seminole Indians actually attacking, then maybe they would all rush in here and try to protect the fort. But yeah, I would assume they weren't all living in here. that'd be a whole heck of a lot of people living in a very, very cramped spot. So this is blockhouse number 2. It does unfortunately say is closed until further notice for electrical repairs. Not open, unfortunately. That is a bummer. Very curious as to what was inside here, but it's closed at the moment. We can't actually go inside. It'll just give us yet another reason to come back out here. That's a shame. I wanted to check that out. This display case here talks all about the building of Fort Christmas. Looks like the groundbreaking took place on December 17th, 1775. It says Fort Christmas Museum began as a bicentennial project of the Orange County Parks Department as a way of recognizing the beginnings of the country in the Seminole Indian War and as a way of honoring Florida's place in America's early history. So all kinds of cool display pieces and plaques, and there's an axe right there, a little hatchet right there, pictures of the fort actually being built. So pretty awesome little display case here telling you all about the the rebuilding of the fort, because apparently the original fort was built within a mile of this location. So it wasn't actually built on this spot. I kind of wonder where the actual fort exactly was built. I'm gonna have to do some research on that. I wonder if there's like a plaque saying like in this spot was the actual fort. I don't know. Gonna have to do some research on that. Just another thing to do. We could do that on Christmas Day. Another reason to come out to Christmas, Florida. I want to find the actual like legitimate spot that the fort was built on. Apparently only within 1 mile of where we are right now. All right, so now we're going to go into the storehouse. It says the storehouse was used for storing army rations and supplies. Food staples consisted of salt pork, dried beef, corn, beans, rice, and coffee, plus such condiments as salt, brown sugar, vinegar, and molasses. Equipment and supplies for an army, such as the one that built Fort Christmas, were substantial and consisted of building tools and materials, plus those items necessary to keep the army in good repair. Articles required for an advance depot by order of General Thomas S. Jessup are listed inside the storehouse. So this is actually, I believe, yes, this is actually open. And once again, air conditioned. Look at this. How cool, again, is this? I'm loving it. All the different supplies in here. Look at the monkey wrench. Like these tools really don't look a heck of a lot different than tools I currently have in my toolbox. In fact, a lot of these tools I do currently have in my toolbox. So we've come a long way since 1837, but in tool technology, we've advanced a little bit. I mean, you got to keep it simple, right? KISS, keep it simple, stupid, or as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if the tools work, don't fix them. And clearly these tools have worked for a very, very long time. Pretty awesome to see all of these. I'm not sure if these are actual antiques or not. Don't know if these are from the 1800s or a little bit past or before or whatever. I have no idea if these are actual legit antiques. There's planers up there. I mean, we still use stuff like that today. Pretty cool. It's all kinds of stuff, just not powerized. So there's hand drills there and whatnot. I actually have a hand drill back at home as well. It was my grandfather's actually, so I still have it. Look at the paddle boat down here. That is really cool. This is neat. Tells you all about the transportation. There's yet another map of Orange County there. There's a big wagon wheel. You see all kinds of supplies up there. I believe this is what actually tells you all about what kind of supplies you needed to have to keep your army going strong. This sign here just kind of reiterates what we read outside, tells you all about what would have been inside the storehouse, but then goes into further detail, telling you things like 24 hand hatchets and 6 dozen chalk lines and 24 cane knives, 50 pounds of oakum, whatever that is, 4 whip saws. So all kinds of stuff. Just further goes into detail on what would have been actually inside the storehouse. Pretty cool. This is really, really awesome. Do you think it opens up? It does. And there's just a top of a barrel. But look at all this. Probably what was rice. Oh, this is supposed to be rice. I'm guessing that would have been inside here. Does it say? I have no idea what is inside here. But all kinds of rations for the army would have been inside here to keep it going, to keep it strong, and to keep pushing those Native Americans off their land that, again, was rightfully theirs to begin with. Okay, that was actually pretty awesome. I'm going to be very gentle with this door. Don't want it to slam again. That was neat. This is a really, really cool place. Again, it is a shame that Blockhouse number 2 is closed at the moment. Hopefully they get that reopened at some point. Would love to go inside there. Just again, another reason to come back out here. Actually, there's a lot of reasons to come back out here. This is just a very small portion of this park. There's all kinds of other buildings, historical buildings over there that I don't believe have anything to do with the fort themselves, but other historical buildings that were moved onto property that we can take a look at. There's all kinds of really, really cool stuff out here. There's the American flag hanging up there, not blowing in the breeze because there is no breeze right now. It's very warm out, very humid out right now. So pretty awesome. Fort Christmas. Again, where better to be halfway through the year until Christmas? Just 6 months away will be Christmas. So why not come out to Christmas, Florida? And why not check out Fort Christmas? Been wanting to do this for some time now. I figured today was the perfect day. What a cool place to visit. Again, not the greatest piece of Florida history, not the most amazing piece of U.S. history, not a great time in the history of this country, but regardless, it is still history. It is good to learn about this kind of history so that hopefully history does not repeat itself. Hopefully. But anyway, this is pretty cool. Definitely wanted to get out here and wanted to check this out. And again, what better day than halfway to Christmas? I'm gonna go back into the Blockhouse quickly because again, unfortunately, we cannot get into Blockhouse number 2, which is definitely a shame. Also, just want to get out of that Florida humidity. It is very, very stagnant and warm and humid out there right now. Look at the gun ports here. This is where you would have shot your musket rifles out of to shoot your enemies, to shoot the Seminole Indians, the Native Americans, who again were just trying to protect their home and their land. You would have shot at them through the rifle ports right there. You would have shot your musket rifles out of them. In Walt Disney World, you can actually shoot rifles out of those. They have these like little mock rifles that make gunfire sounds. You can shoot them out of the gun ports right there. It'll make me, I mean, again, they're closing that whole section down, so it won't be open for much longer. But I was gonna say, every time I go back there now, I'd be thinking, what am I shooting at? What am I really shooting at? Like you think, oh, you're fighting the enemy. You're shooting at you're the U.S. Army. You're shooting at the enemy. And every time I go back to Disney now, I would think, what am I actually shooting at? Am I really shooting at the enemy, or am I shooting at people just literally trying to protect their land that the United States is trying to steal from them? But anyway, still pretty cool place. Again, not the greatest moment in American history, but still a pretty awesome historical place to come out and check out. Would recommend coming out here. Again, there's a lot of stuff to see out here. I'm just focusing today on the actual fort itself because I want other reasons to come back out here. I want to show you guys the other stuff that's out here at some other points. But all right, as much as I would love to just hang out here in the air conditioning for the next about hour or so, I think they're open, I guess we'll head out. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for today. Again, June 25th, the halfway point until Christmas here in Christmas, Florida, the town that was named after Fort Christmas, where in 1837, 2,000 troops came and built a fort to fight the Seminole Indians in the Second Seminole War. Again, not a happy moment. I keep saying that, but it's not. I've read up on the Seminole Indian Wars, and it's not a great thing. It's not a good thing at all. But still, pretty cool historical place to come out and check out. But all right, guys, I'm gonna let you guys go before this rain starts to pour down upon us. I want to go just kind of check out the property quick. Gonna head back there to the Pioneer Homes, see some of the buildings over there, maybe go hit up the Welcome Center, see if they have any postcards or stickers or pins or anything fun like that to pick up. If they do, I'll grab some stuff. But yeah, just want to kind of get a layout for the land so I can figure out what to bring you guys out here next time to see. Again, there's a lot of stuff out here. We will absolutely, definitely be back. But today, like I said, really just wanted to focus on Fort Christmas. But all right, guys, that is going to do it. So as always, thank you all so much for checking out this video. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, check down below for links to Patreon, check down below for links to Spreadshirt, hit the join button to become a member of this channel. If you guys do become a member, you will gain early access to all of my videos. And if you watch this video all the way until the very end, hashtag thank you, Olivia. Because Olivia is the one who actually gave me the idea of doing something Christmas related today. She said, did you know that on Wednesday, it's the halfway point to Christmas? You should do something Christmas related. So here we are, Christmas related. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it. So again, as always, like I said, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you do hit that subscribe button or you are subscribed, then I will see you guys in the next video over the hump to Christmas. As of tomorrow, we'll be on the downward slope heading towards December 25th, Christmas Day. All right, guys, again, that's going to do it. So like I said, thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Oh, we got some more kids coming into the fort. All right. Or those Seminole Indians. All right. Bye.